Bethany's body was found in the back seat of her minivan. The van was parked in a picnic area overlooking what is called Longview Lake in Kansas City, Missouri. It was a place where people typically would come to picnic. They would spend time with their friends. They would just be hanging out. It was certainly not the kind of place where you would find a dead body. Yet inside the van, there was Bethany. And Bethany's head had been covered with a plastic bag. Next to her body was an empty bottle of Tylenol PM pills. And then next to the empty bottle was what appeared to be a goodbye note. A note to show that when she got inside her minivan that day, she never planned on coming out of it alive. The note read, "My name is Bethany Deaton. I chose this evil thing. I did it because I wouldn't be a real person, and what's the point of living if it's too late for that? I wish I had chosen differently a long time ago. I knew it all and refused to listen. Maybe Jesus will still save me." Bethany was just 27 years old. Now, without even going any further into this case, I am curious where your mind is going when I'm describing this scene. Because the empty pill bottle and that note, I mean, yeah, it seemed pretty straightforward, but then the bag on her head? That seemed a little bit different if this were self-harm. I mean, just a tiny bit. Now, the key detail here, too, was that the bag was loose. It wasn't tied, it wasn't duct taped around her neck. It looked as though it had just been quickly placed over her head. And that's not to say that plastic bags are completely out of the ordinary in cases of people taking their own lives. In fact, when I did a little bit of digging, I learned that it's actually somewhat common. But it still didn't feel like everything aligned perfectly with what you normally would think you would see at a scene like that. And there were some other details that seemed strange as well. Next to her body and that empty pill bottle, there were thank you cards. Thank you cards for everyone who had attended the wedding and given Bethany and Tyler gifts just 2 months earlier. Half the cards were filled out, too. The others, though, hadn't been written on yet. So that made investigators pause for a second, because on its face, that detail felt a little off, right? I mean, why would somebody sit down and write these thank you cards if they were planning to take their own life? It doesn't exactly line up. Same thing could be said for the Ellen Greenberg case, if you're familiar with that case. It was a case that was ruled self-harm, that nobody believes was truly what happened, and she had been preparing a fruit salad right before she took her life. So it's things like that that just weren't really making sense. However, just as quickly as the thought crossed their minds, they started to just push it aside. And their reasoning for that was pretty simple. When somebody is having self-harm ideations, you can't always apply logic. People don't always behave in ways that make perfect sense. Sometimes they give things away. Sometimes they tie up loose ends. Sometimes they act completely normal. So while yes, it struck them as odd, it wasn't quite enough to raise a huge red flag. Now, before any official cause of death was released, word had spread fast. And the truth was, considering everything that was at the crime scene, the rumor was that Bethany had taken her own life. But right away, there were differing reactions and different points of views when it came to Bethany's death. There were those who believed that Bethany could have and would have taken her own life, but then there were also those who just didn't believe it. And as for Bethany's new husband, Tyler, well, he was the type of person who did believe it. He was the first person that the investigators got into contact with after finding Bethany's body. Detective Penny Cole was the investigator on the case and also the one who broke the news to Tyler, telling him that his new wife of only a couple of months was deceased. Now, you'd think that given how young Bethany was and the fact that they had just gotten married and were starting their life together, that his reaction would be one of devastation, denial, right? Maybe even just complete being distraught. However, Detective Cole claimed that Tyler's reaction wasn't at all what she expected it to be.